Here we are, it's April in New Hampshire. And yeah, we did have snow the other day, but it's supposed to be up to the mid 70s and into the 80s even this week. So I got to get working on this project that I have been putting off all winter long, making all kinds of excuses why I haven't dived into it, but now I'm going to have to. Yeah, working on the Jaguar 67 E-Type Series 1 4.2 that we've had for 50 years or so. And last year the speedometer stopped working. I don't really like to have the speedometer not working. I don't care so much about how fast I'm going, but I like the odometer reading to stay true to the car. So there's no question about how many miles are on this car. So anyway, speedometer stopped working. First thing to do is get underneath the dashboard, and that's not an easy thing to do, but get under there and disconnect the cable. Okay, drive down the road with your fingers on the end of the cable, the little square end of it, which turns the speedometer. Now, if that is turning when you go down the road, that inner part of the cable, then you know the problem is with the speedometer instrument itself. If it's not turning, then either that inner cable is broken or there's a problem with the right angle drive coming out of the transmission. So you could pull the inner cable out without removing the outer cable. So I pulled it out, examined it. It appears that it is not broken. The end of it looks squared off the way it should be. So that means the issue at hand must be the right angle drive coming out of the transmission. Now, that means we got to replace that. You look underneath the car, the transmission area, you can't even see it. Never mind be able to get your hands on it to manipulate it. Jaguar says, oh yes, pull the engine and transmission out of the car. I don't think so. So we're down here and we're looking at the transmission tunnel. And you see there's an inspection plate, rubber cap that comes off. The intent of that is just merely to lubricate the universal joint. The speedo drive is right about here. You can't get at it. Now, I thought that the transmission tunnel unbolted from the floor pan. It doesn't really. It's kind of like welded and seamed into the floor pan. So what we're going to have to do is cut an inspection hole or door in the side of the transmission tunnel in order to be able to get in there and pull out that right angle drive, and hopefully it's a problem with the right angle drive that we can replace, because what else could it be? Yeah, it could be the gear inside the gearbox that drives the right angle drive. Oh, we gotta hope that that's not the issue, because if that's the issue, my friend, we won't be fixing this problem. So anyway, got out the Dremel tool, and we're gonna cut a rectangular hole in the side of the transmission tunnel, which I don't like doing. But I think once I'm all done, I can make a nice inspection removable door cover that will cover the area that I cut off, and hopefully it won't get too ugly in the process of doing that. So I'm gonna have a little lunch, and we're gonna dive into cutting a door into the transmission tunnel of the 67 Jaguar E-Type coupe, which, man, I'm not looking forward to this job. That's what we're up to. Well, now here you can see I have cut a window, inspection door, whatever you want to call it, in the side of the transmission tunnel so that I could get at the output speedo drive from the gearbox. You can see up here, here's the cable that goes up to the speedometer. And as I said before, that looks just fine and dandy. But what I found when I pulled off the right-hand Speedo drive. Here is the culprit. This is the right angle drive. Speedo cable connects there. This goes into the gearbox, and there's a link between here and the gear, the drive gear on the gearbox, and it's a little piece of Speedo cable. And yes, lo and behold, it was snapped off. Snapped off because this drive is bound up. It will not turn. So the gearbox turned that piece, trying to turn this in order to change the direction of travel 90 degrees to the Speedo cable up to the Speedo, bound up inside, snapped the piece off. So as I suspected, it's the old right angle drive, which we're going to have to replace. So down in the basement, I go through my pile of scrap metal. You know, there's pieces of metal that I've taken off of various things like washers and dryers that have failed, or old pieces of signs or whatever. So I've got plenty of pieces to work with, some nice heavy sheet metal here, so I can make that inspection door cover to cover up the hole, or that I created, the window I created to get at this transmission tunnel. And I'll probably fabricate that now. So there you have it. I've made up a template out of cardboard, and we'll see how that fits on the car. And if we need to make some dimensional modifications, we can do that, and then we'll cut it out of sheet metal once we get it so that we like the fit. I can get that transmission right angle drive, believe it or not, right here in Manchester, New Hampshire, because North America's largest dealer of antique Jaguar parts is a British company. They happen to be located, or have a division, right here in Manchester, New Hampshire, not too far from the airport, because we have no sales tax in New Hampshire, so it's a logical place for an international company to set themselves up. Anyway, hopefully I'll be able to get the proper right angle drive right in stock there at Barrett Jackson. Not Barrett Jackson, that's not that name. Something with a B, I don't know, whatever. I'll tomorrow scoot off and see if I can get that part. In the meantime, I'm going to make that door. Yeah, so here we have it. We have, okay, so here's my little door that I made up with a little rubber seal around it to help it mount to the uneven surface of the transmission tunnel. Yeah. But you know, the bad news was I called up my Jaguar supplier, Barrett, in Londonderry, the big vintage Jaguar supplier that I would go to for probably 25 years or whatever. English company located in Manchester, New Hampshire. I call him up and say, hey, what time are you guys open? I want to come and pick something up. He goes, oh, well, yeah, we're open till 5:30, but I don't think you'll make it here. And I said, why? What are you talking about? You're only like, a half an hour from the house here. And he goes, oh, we moved to Virginia. What? The Jaguar supplier moved to Virginia? Ah, geez. So I had to place an order, and they'll ship it, and I'll have it by Tuesday. Things, nothing stays the same in this world. What the heck is it? Virginia. Jeez. Oh, well. So I ordered off a new right angle drive, since I couldn't go and pick it up because my vintage Jaguar dealer moved to Virginia. Anyway, you can see here the end is the piece of cable that bound up and snapped off. And here we have the nice new shiny right angle drive. Now, these right angle drives were used in speedometers. They were used in tachometers to change the direction of rotation from this to 90 degrees to that, because you would have to bend a cable, a speedo cable or tach drive cable. You would have to bend it to get it to go in the direction that you wanted
by 90 degrees, it would be too much of a bend. So a lot of British cars and motorcycles have got this 90-degree conversion drive. But the thing is, some of them are a little bit different. They have mounting flanges on the side of them and so forth, depending on how they're attached. But if this was for an MGB or a Triumph TR6, something like that, you could buy a brand new one for $29 or $39. And if it was for a Jaguar like this one here, they figure you've got a Jaguar, you got a few more bucks. So instead of like $49 or $69, we're going to charge you $297 for basically the same piece. Although, you know, the gear might be a little different ratio inside. Say, here's another example of that 90-degree drive coming out of the timing chest cover on a 1960s Velocette Venom to drive the tachometer cable. Because the cable couldn't come out straight here, it would never make a bend, it'd be sticking way out. So, you know, the Brits always had a way of tacking on these 90-degree drives. My first encounter with one of these was up in Maine. Judy and I were riding our tired and underpowered BMW R50 that had a slipping clutch. You had to accelerate very, very slowly or the clutch would slip, and I hadn't gotten around to changing it, and we were headed off up the coast of Maine with my buddy Nick and Gail, and they were on a early 60s, late 50s Norton Commando, a snorting Norton. This thing was fast and furious and been all overboard and hogged out and worn out. And anyway, we're heading over the I-95 bridge, the New Hampshire-Maine border. Guess just on the other side, Nick pulls off the side of the road. Right leg is all covered with oil. What happened, man? Said, I don't know, oil's coming out all over the place. Well, he blew the end out of the drive here. This one is solid, but the Norton had a removable piece here that was pressed in from the inside. And the gear had gotten so bound up, it blew that plate right out. Oil was coming out all over the place. So we stopped on the side of the road, and I took the unit apart and found that we could put a nickel in there, and that would seal it off and stop the oil leak. Anyway, that was my first encounter with a dreaded 90-degree drive, which still haunts me all these years later. Now, in this circumstance or in this situation with the Speedo drive for the 67 Jag. So anyway, we got the new part, and we'll see if we can put it in the next couple of days, although we've been kind of beaten up by a head cold this week. But we'll be off and at it again. How often should one lubricate his 90-degree drive? Well, the book says something like, well, every 30 days, it's wise to lubricate the 90-degree drive. Every 30 days? You realize you can't even get at this piece? You can't get at it from underneath the car? Jaguar says pull the engine and transmission out to get at this piece? I had to cut a little door in the transmission tunnel to get at it. But so you're telling me every 90, 30, 60, 90 days I'm supposed to lubricate this thing? Oh, the Brits have such a marvelous sense of humor, don't they? Okay, so here you see we've got the right angle drive installed back in the side of the gearbox. And see, that's where the screws into the gearbox, and that's where the speedometer cable screws in. And as you can see, there's pretty tight clearance. You'd never be able to get a hand up in there to access this without having cut that doorway or window that I've cut in there. So anyway, we're all back with the 90-degree drive installed for the Speedo. We'll put the cover on. Okay, so there we have it all installed in place, and you know, you can't see it anyway because it's hidden underneath the upholstery. That's the way it's going to be, and no one will be the wiser. And we didn't have to pull the engine and transmission out to do it. Or peel up the transmission tunnel, which is kind of glued into place, and it would have been a real messy deal to pull that out. And I'd have to take the seats out and take the dashboard half apart to get at that. It just didn't seem to make sense to do it. You can see the end of the speedometer cable, and that's going to need to get screwed into the back of the speedometer. And at that point, hopefully, we will have restored the functioning of the speedometer. Well, I had to disconnect the cable once and reseat it, but it appears that we have a functioning speedometer again. So we can see that the speedometer was working and the odometer was working as well. And that's really the big thing that I want to function is the odometer, because as you can see, this car only has 69,973 original miles from 1967. So I want to continue to have a true reading on the odometer. Okay, mission accomplished. Got the 67 Jag speedometer and odometer working again as it should be. So we can move on to something else now.